When I was a kid, I loved drawing. My mum would tape my crayon sketches to the fridge, rows of uneven stick figures with smiling faces and crooked houses. But no matter what I drew, birthday parties, our living room, even just me and Mum, there was always an extra figure. He was tall, much taller than the rest, and I never gave him a mouth, just 2 black circles for eyes. Mom asked once, while pinning one of my pictures up, "Why is he always there?" "Who?" I remember saying. "The man from the hallway," she said casually, like it was obvious. I froze, because I didn't remember ever telling her about him. The memory didn't bother me much until last week, when I visited my childhood home to help Mom clean it out before she moved. The house was smaller than I remembered, ceilings lower, paint peeling, the old hallway stretching narrower than it once had. In the attic, I found a cardboard box labeled in my mom's handwriting, "Artwork, keep." Inside were my old drawings, faded crayon lines on crinkled paper, and he was in every single one, taller than the rest, 2 black circles for eyes. I shuffled through them, my heart thumping harder with each page. He was never the focus, just standing off to the side in the doorway, behind the couch, next to the bed, always watching. And then I pulled out one I didn't remember drawing. It wasn't crayons, it was ink, scrawled in jagged strokes, the lines too steady for a child's hand. It showed my old bedroom, every detail exact. The flowered curtains, the toy chest, the twin bed against the wall. And there I was, small and smiling, clutching a stuffed rabbit. The tall man stood in the doorway, but this time he had a mouth, a wide, toothless oval, like a scream frozen open. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing the hallway outside my childhood room, how dark it got when the lights were off, how shadows stretched across the carpet. I kept hearing Mom's voice, so many years ago, asking me why I always drew the man from the hallway. At some point, I got up for water. The house was dark, except for the dim glow of the lamp in the living room. I stepped into the hall, and I swear I saw him, just for a second, tall, motionless at the far end, his face nothing but black circles for eyes. I blinked, and he was gone. The next morning, I told Mom what I thought I'd seen. She went pale, pressing her lips together. "You saw him too?" "Then," she whispered. That stopped me cold. "What do you mean to?" I asked. She turned toward the fridge. Pinned to it, yellowed with age, was one of my drawings. I hadn't noticed it the night before. The tall man was there, half faded, but Mom had circled him in red pen. "I didn't put him in your pictures," she said. "He put himself there. You just copied what you saw." I looked back at the hallway. The shadows seemed thicker now, clinging to the edges of the walls. And when I shut my eyes, I could still see him waiting. Not in the hallway, in the dark behind my eyelids. I don't tell this story often because it never sounds real, but I remember it like it happened yesterday, even though I was only 6. There was a park 2 blocks from our house, the kind with squeaky swings and a metal jungle gym that blistered your hands in the summer. I used to climb it every evening, waiting until the streetlights flickered on before heading home. One night, just after sunset, I scrambled up to the very top. The air smelled like hot asphalt and cut grass. I remember leaning forward to look at the ground below. Only the ground wasn't there. Instead, it was like the world had flipped. Beneath the bars, I saw the park again, but upside down. Grass grew downward into the sky. Swings swayed backward, and children, at least a dozen of them, played in reverse, their laughter echoing strangely, as if being sucked back into their mouths. I froze, gripping the cold bars. None of the kids looked familiar, but their movements felt rehearsed, like they weren't really playing, just performing. Then one of them stopped and looked straight up at me. It was me, not 6-year-old me. Older, taller, my own face staring back with wide, unblinking eyes. I blinked hard, hard hammering. When I looked again, the ground was normal, just dirt, grass, and my scuffed sneakers dangling. I never told anyone. Kids exaggerate, right? At least that's what I told myself. But that's not all. Years passed. I forgot about the park until I was 24. Home visiting my parents. The place had been abandoned for years. No kids, no laughter, just weeds sprouting through cracked pavement. Out of curiosity, I wandered in. The jungle gym was still there, rusted and tilting to one side. The paint had peeled away, exposing dull orange metal. That's when I noticed the carvings. Names etched into the bars, one after another, crowding every inch of metal. At first I thought it was normal graffiti, but when I looked closer, my chest went cold. They were all the same name. My name. Dozens of times. Hundreds, maybe. And the handwriting wasn't random. It looked identical. Precise, as if the same hand had scratched them in over years. My hand. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. Then I heard it. Children laughing. Not from the houses nearby, but from the jungle gym itself. High-pitched giggles bubbling from the rusted bars. I turned, and for a split second, I swear the metal warped. Through the gaps, I saw that upside-down park again, the one I'd seen as a kid. Only this time, there weren't dozens of children, just one. He was older than 6 now. My height, my build, my face. He grinned at me, baring teeth that weren't mine, and pressed his hand against the other side of the bars. I ran, but here's the part that keeps me awake now. The next morning, I checked my own arm in the mirror. Scratches I didn't remember getting ran down my forearm. Letters carved into my skin. My name. The handwriting matched perfectly. When I was 9, I kept a shoebox under my bed like it was a tiny museum. Buttons, odd coins. A smooth stone I pretended was a planet. The thing I loved most was a little glass jar with a metal lid. Cheap, like something from a jam jar you'd find at a yard sale. I swore I'd found it behind the hydrangeas in our yard. But check this out. If I held it close at night, I could hear something inside. A whisper at first, like someone talking through a wall. It wasn't words so much as rhythm. The rattle of breath rearranged into syllables. Sometimes it said my name. Sometimes it laughed, small and wet. I thought it was magic, the kind you get when you're small and bored, and the summer air smells like gasoline and cut grass. It learned to talk back. I'd ask it questions, important ones, like will I still like comic books when I'm grown? And the jar would answer in sentences that hummed the way a radio would if it were tuned between stations. It liked being asked. It liked being listened to. It liked being remembered. That's completely normal, right? Please say yes. My parents moved us the year I turned 18. Boxes and boxes. The shoebox came with me to the car, wrinkled and taped. But when we unpacked in my room at college, the jar was gone. My mother said, maybe it fell out in the move. My father said it was probably nothing. I told myself they were right. I put the shoebox in the closet and went about making adult decisions, like how much ramen to buy at once. But that night, in a thin-walled dorm room that smelled of gym shoes and coffee, I heard it again. Not through glass, not distant. It was a whisper pressed against my ear, warm and intimate, saying my childhood nickname in the cadence I'd once used for it. For a second, I thought one of the other students was pranking me. For another second, I believed sleep deprivation had built its own language. Then the voice laughed, the same wet, close sound, and said, "You left me." I tore through drawers. I called my mother. I drove back the 2 hours to the house where I'd grown up, because sometimes things are lost in the move, and sometimes they're not. The mantle, the hydrangea bed, the closet, no jar. I dug through the attic until my fingers were raw, and nothing turned up but old yearbooks and a box of baseball cards. When I asked her, my mother frowned like I was inventing details. "You always had an active imagination," she said. "Maybe you left it in a friend's pocket." She didn't sound sure. That scared me more than the voice. But it gets crazier. At first it responded when I called it. Then it started calling me. Not my name, my interior. The little habits nobody else notices. It would whisper the exact words my father had used to scold me the week before, or mimic the melody of a lullaby my mother hummed when I was 5. It used knowledge of me, like fingers on a harp, tugging until a note broke. Here's the part that made me stop pretending. One night the voice said, plainly, "Names? What about names?" I asked, leaning over the bedside table, as if the jar might actually be sitting there. "You keep them. You bury them. Hand them to me, and I will hold them." The voice was patient, cunning. Forget who said them, and they are empty. I thought it was begging to be remembered. I thought that was safe. So I tried to remember harder. I closed my eyes and pictured everyone I loved. Faces, summers, the exact shape of my mother's laugh. The voice hummed. It tasted each memory and then slid the name away like a coin through a slot. Now pay attention to this part. The next morning I woke and could not remember my neighbor's name from 3rd grade. It was a small thing, embarrassing, salvageable. So I called the number in an old email. A man answered, and when he spoke the name it should have been, my throat closed and the voice crowed, soft and triumphant. Saved. You won't believe this, but I can feel it now. Like a cold glass, pressed where memory used to live. Tonight, it whispered. One more. It sounded like lullaby and ledger both. I checked the shoebox again. There was no jar. There was only the faint impression of a circle in the bottom of the box, like something had been sucked out. When the knock comes, I will open the door and try to say a name that keeps me anchored. I will try to hand it like payment and bargain for the rest. But listen to this. The voice already knows which name I will offer. It told me last week, in a tone I used when I forgave myself for childish things. It's patient. It likes small exchanges. Outside my door, someone says, very quietly, "Hey, do you remember?" My mind shudders, and the word thins like breath on glass. I reach to hold it, but the voice is there, inside the quiet, smiling like a jar. Thanks for listening. Now close your eyes and sleep.